Hello.
Hello, hello. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
I am as well, and so happy to be here with all of you who are tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Sending so much love your way before we even begin.
We really are. Yeah, it feels so good to have their energy here. Like, even though we can't see you right now, but we know that when you watch, you're feeling our energy and we're feeling your energy. And so we just appreciate you and we want you to know that.
Absolutely. So grateful. So in fact, we were just saying that very thing right before we came on. How much gratitude we have for even the opportunity, the privilege to be able to share this space with you. So thank you for tuning in.
Yes. So today, we wanted to bring in a discussion topic on discernment and intuition and see where that takes us. You all know, if you watched the last one, that Anita and I are here playing. We are not looking at this as something that is needing to be run a certain way or done a certain way. This is two soul sisters who are both sensitive empaths and intuitives, and we basically talk like this to each other all the time, every day, actually. And we send Marco Polos back and forth to each other and voice messages, and we just talk like this all day. So we were like, let's why not put it on camera and let other people share in our conversation? So that's us.
Absolutely, yes. We're not here as someone who's trying to tell you what is the right thing, because actually that's one of the hallmarks of intuition, that you know what is right for you. And that is something that we really feel strongly about. So take what resonates with you here and leave the rest, because it really is about what is aligned with you at this moment. What do you need? What actually works for you in this moment? Um, and being able to determine that for yourself. So, yes, not here in any kind of level of expertise, although we do have some expertise in some areas. I don't want to minimize the work we've done, but this is really about a conversation. This is really just about us two empaths. That's why it's named the way it's named. We just want to have a conversation and invite you into that conversation and maybe help you to have and spark those conversations for yourself as well.
Okay. So let's begin. How would you like to start this? Because this conversation between us started the other day by something that you experienced, and then you were thinking about discernment, intuition, judgment.
Yes, very, very big topics. But yeah, so this came up because and I can share a little bit of the story. It's if that works, I can
I think that's very helpful, actually, to give a
yeah, I
little bit
think
of a. Mhm.
that's kind of why we're here, just to share a little bit of our journey, what it feels like for us. And, if some of it, if you're like, oh yeah, that's great. So yes, this past week, I, let's see, how do I start it? I had a bit of a intuition, like some discernment about someone who was speaking, someone I was listening to. And although they weren't saying anything terrible, it didn't quite hit. It didn't quite resonate. And as they continued to speak, considering some of the training I've had, what they were saying was, I don't want to say it was I don't know how to word it. It was just, maybe it could have been done a little bit differently. That would have been a little bit better for, and that's another judgment word, but that would be a little bit more supportive to the people who were listening. And I actually reached out to Shannon because I said, okay, am I being judgmental here, or am I discerning that there's something just a little bit off? And in the world of spirituality, in the world, and like lots of different fields, that question comes up a lot. what's happening here? This is okay? And so we kind of talked about it a little bit, and something that kind of bubbled up for me was that I noticed that I have both. I had discernment and then I had judgment, right? And the judgment came in and saying that wasn't good. Like what she did wasn't good. What I heard wasn't good. And that was the judgment. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Can I pause you just for 1 second? Because I want
Of
to
course.
just clarify for them that this was a class that you were in. So this was an instructor that was leading a practice that felt unsafe. I just wanted to like clarify so that they understood where this was coming from. So thank you. Go ahead.
No, thank you. I appreciate the clarification. My stories, as you'll know, are just kind of go like this. That's my brain. So Shannon will keep me back on the road, which I really appreciate. A little bit of just that kind of mind. So yeah, so what I noticed was both judgment and discernment were there. And when I kind of teased that out a little bit and I was meditating on it, I noticed that the judgment came in because I didn't really allow myself the space to discern something for myself. So I was saying that isn't good. That's not good. And it was judgmental. But what I really wanted to say was that's really not that great for me. And to give myself permission to say that and to allow myself to say, this isn't a good fit for me because I don't know how it's landing for anybody else, right? And there are things that perhaps what she's doing is okay. So I am, that opens up a whole nother thing. So I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about that. But that's kind of what I was trying to navigate. So that's how this conversation started.
And I think, and where we ended up kind of going with it was that so many empaths have a difficult time using their voice. And even when they're hearing their intuition or feeling it or knowing it, it's very hard for us, for many, to actually say, ooh, that doesn't feel good for me, because it's very easy to self-doubt. I think that's because for so long, empaths have been told that they're wrong, right? Oh, you're being too sensitive. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. So like when we express ourselves, then we are basically shut down. So when something comes up and it feels like, that doesn't feel quite right, it's very easy for us to wonder, oh, maybe I'm wrong. And of course, you know, I think that can change, that it grows. I know in myself, like I've seen huge changes. When Anita was talking about this with me, I had this memory come up. And, we're very specifically at this moment talking about in the world of spirituality, but this can go for anything. We can bring it forward later into anywhere in life. But I remember I was in a workshop situation. It was in person, and it was a women's spirituality workshop. There were 40 people. It was huge. It was a packed workshop. And this particular speaker was very well known at the time, and everyone was very excited. We were probably halfway through the workshop. It was a good workshop. I was enjoying myself. And she said, we are going to do a practice. In that moment, I literally heard, I kind of was scanning around the room. Part of the practice was we were going to be paired up, and she was pairing us. And I literally heard, as I was scanning the room and looked at this one woman, the voice said, not her, anybody but her. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And I didn't say anything. Um, because first off, we hadn't been paired up, but we were paired up. And even when we were paired up, that voice was so strong inside of me, not her, anybody but her. And I did not have the ability. I was only in my early 20s. I was nervous, for all the reasons. I was self-doubting that voice. And I really hadn't, even though my my guides had been talking to me by then, I was not a full believer that I was hearing them. So I didn't do it. And it was an experience that left me shaken energetically for years after that. And and it was a learning experience because after that I realized I better start listening more clearly and standing up for what is right for me, for discerning what is right for me and what is not right for me. And in that moment, I should have actually walked out of the room. I could have made any excuse in the world and walked out of the room, but I didn't. And I put myself in a very dangerous, energetic um, position. And yet, everyone else had an amazing moment in that practice. So, while I could judge her for being a poor practitioner, I don't think she was. Was it unsafe for me? Yes, absolutely. So, yeah.
Yes, and I think that is really the key. Because so often I know for myself, I would say, oh, well, I don't want to judge that person. And I don't want to say oh, that wasn't good. Or I'll swing over to the other side, like, oh, I'm never doing something like that again. That was terrible. She was terrible. She should have never done that. When really I was never allowing myself to really listen to the voice inside, the intuitive knowing that I had that it wasn't okay for me. And that's okay, as you said, like to be able to walk out of that room because this isn't a good fit for me. How often do we show up into spaces, into situations, into relationships, and we just stay, even though everything inside of us is screaming, this isn't okay. This isn't okay because we don't feel that we have the right. We don't feel that we're deserving. We don't feel like we have enough I have to follow what's happening here. The whole class is here and they're all enjoying this, but for me this isn't okay. And I think um that sense of empowerment to be able to say actually this isn't okay for me and that's okay. That permission piece that even if it's working for everyone else, if it's not working for me, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with me. This just isn't a good fit. I had had a similar experience at a workshop for breath, and it was intense, and I just really felt, and I had that intuitive knowing that I just needed to not, like, I needed to slow it down. I needed to not do this. I needed to not follow what everyone else was doing. But I just didn't have it in me to say no to that. I didn't have it in me. I didn't feel like I had a right to do that. This was an expert in this, this is the teacher. I need to listen. Everybody else is fine. And I just would constantly override those messages I was getting for myself. And I pushed myself way too far in this breath workshop. And I really paid a price afterwards. Like it was really, I was really struggling for almost 2 weeks after this workshop because I had pushed myself too far and my body was trying to speak to me. And I feel like so often as empaths, because we are have been what most of us have been taught to pay attention to the room. We grew up in that. But we'll also naturally gravitate toward caring for everyone else. So those thoughts that would enter my head would be, oh, the teacher's going to be so upset with me. Everyone's going to feel like I've let them down. Like all of these voices will come through and will override the intuition. And I have put myself in so many situations by doing that and have harmed myself as a result.
I'm so glad you brought up the breath work because I was actually going to bring it up if you hadn't, and that was like perfect. Um, I think one of the things that I think most empaths really have to grasp within themselves is that not only are we energetically sensitive, but we are sensitive in so many ways. So I would never, for any of my clients, recommend like something like holotropic breathing if they're a sensitive empath. That is something that is so harsh to the system. And And if we look even beyond that, medications, different things like that can also be really harsh on the system, or different modalities of even movement can be
Mhm.
harsh to certain empaths for certain reasons. But I noticed, like, when I was in the hospital, they gave me morphine after surgery, and they didn't ask, and I didn't think to say anything about it, and I had a horrible like reaction, and I should have known better, because I know that I don't do well with any medications that are not, that are, even over the counter stuff. Like, I don't take that. My body doesn't do well with it. It always reacts in a weird way. When I go to the dentist, like, I have to be very careful about what they're going to, do. And I think most empaths, they're probably out there listening and nodding their head going, "Oh yeah, I've been there." Like, but often, if we aren't advocating for ourselves, if we aren't saying and like identifying, "Oh, actually, as an empath, that might not be, like, I might need a softer version of that, whatever that might be, a medicine, maybe go a natural route, unless, obviously, if there's some sort of major need and you're in a car accident, you're not going to be able to tell them that. But yeah, I think that that's just one whole other aspect of being an empath, and being out in the world, that popped into my head. So, we go where we go here. We go where we go. That's off topic, but also a little on topic.
I think it's on topic. I think it all kind of weaves together, and I think that is the life of an empath. As we go through the world, oftentimes there are all of these pieces that you're having to kind of think about all at the same time. And yeah, it really does play back to the point of that permission to be who you are, right? That it's okay that perhaps you need a different dosage. Perhaps, of course, we're not saying like get rid of medicine, but perhaps the dosage needs to be shifted a little bit for you. And again, that's okay. I think so often we can carry so much shame around our own sensitivity and our own need to be a little bit different than what the crowd is doing, that we often don't see that it's really hurting us not to be able to advocate for that. I agree with you. I go to the dentist. Even Novocaine, simple Novocaine is very um, I'm so sensitive to it. There's a special note that's like the newer Novocaine they use. I don't know if they put it. I don't know anything about Novocaine, so but there's something that's in it, and it makes my whole system just react. Um, and that's across the board. My daughter will say, "Oh my gosh, I'm not giving you any Advil because here's a half." Everything is just. I'm very sensitive to those types of things. So that getting to know yourself and allowing that truth to be there and honoring that in you, I think is super, super important, because it is in that I'm just going to abandon myself in this. I'm just going to ignore this. I'm just going to pretend that this isn't really, I'm just going to go over here and do what everyone else is doing. We end up in just not even just the self-abandonment, but then we can end up in some harmful situations.
Yes, absolutely. And it does feel like self-abandonment when that happens.
Mhm.
Speaking of like the doctor, when you were talking about the dentist, it reminded me that several years ago, I have this wonderful, amazing optometrist that I've been seeing since I was 18 or 19. But for whatever reason, this one year I needed it done and I couldn't, and they're like an hour drive for me and I couldn't get there. So I had to go to this other closer optometrist, and they wanted to dilate my eyes. And I told them that I am very, very sensitive. Like, give me a half or a quarter of it because it will last all day. And they poo-pooed it. They were like, no, 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 it'll be fine. We do this every day. You'll only be dilated for a few hours. I was dilated for well over 24 hours. When I woke up the next morning, it was still dilated. And I was like, and I should have like been very specific and been like, no, actually, this is my body. And I'm telling you, no. But I didn't. at the time. Now I know better, and I don't I go back to my regular doctor who knows me well and knows they actually don't even have to dilate me. That like he's like, you're my most sensitive patient that I have, and I don't ever dilate you. So anyway, we
I
have
think
to.
that's really important. Yeah. Yeah, to share that. Thank you. Absolutely. Because I think also, to your point, we'll advocate and that will get overridden, right? No, 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 it'll be fine. And it's really hard to know the difference because this is the doctor speaking, this is the professional, and you want to be able to trust that. But because, perhaps your system operates a little bit differently, when you really get to know it, you can be a little bit firmer and no, actually, I really know that this happens, right? There are times when we don't know, but as we connect and as we get more attuned to our system, our body, all that's going on, and then as that attunement grows and there's more clarity and there's more accuracy, you can become a little bit more, no, I actually know that this is not okay. Instead of being, you know, I don't, what would be the word, pushed into something that you know that is actually not good for you.
And that brings up this other piece. Like, how do you know it's not going to be good for you? And of course, that's kind of a time where we have to explore and experiment, and sometimes it just doesn't feel good, and then we realize, okay, that's not for me. But also, I think that this, I think that there's this general understanding when you accept fully the gifts of being an empath and you understand that that means other things and you fully like know that, that's a big shift to be able to stand up a little taller and say, okay, I haven't actually had that, whatever it is. It may not feel good in my body, so I'm going to try half of it, or I'm going to do less with it, like with the breath. Like, for instance, you know, um, just knowing the fact that I'm a sensitive empath, and I might do my research whether or not that breath feels appropriate, do the research to know exactly what kind of breathing it is, what it looks like, look at maybe some YouTube to see other people doing the breath, and then just before signing up for that class, actually listening to the intuition and then deciding whether or discerning whether that felt good in my body when I watched it or not. Because as empaths, that's what it all comes down to. How does it feel in your body? That's going to be our biggest tell.
Oh, absolutely. The body is speaking to us all the time. It's telling us so many messages. And a lot of times, especially for empaths, because we are on the more sensitive side, we could, I'm not saying everyone does, but we could have a tendency to try to shut it down a little bit because it can feel really overwhelming. But the opposite is actually more helpful to be able to attune more to it, to understand what does that mean, because it's really just trying to talk to you. It's really just trying to speak and say, "Hey, pay attention over here. There's a lot going on. What's happening?" And I think also if we can, I mean, a lot of us have been through life, so if we do a little self-reflection and think back to times, we probably have some situations where we say, "Oh no, I knew. I knew I wish I knew I shouldn't have done that. I knew I didn't belong there. I knew that person was not great. Like I knew." And when you think back to that, you think, "Wow, actually I have known. Like I knew." And when we can start to trust that knowing is when we become more empowered, because it's always been there, it's there, but that we tend to doubt, we tend to self-doubt that for a lot of reasons, and that being able to actually trust and say, "Oh, I hear you, I hear you." I don't know why I hear you, and I'm going to listen this time because um I've been listening more often, and it's very, I don't want to say like, because it can get a little bit tricky, right, Shannon? Sometimes the body is sending you messages that are not the message you're supposed to be, right? So we want
Right.
to be careful with that as well. You know, there are messages that get sent. They really are messages, but it's, and I think this is going to be really important to kind of segue into the difference between anxiety brain and fear and intuition, right?
Absolutely. And I love how you said that anxiety, fear, because it is in the brain. That's the brain sending the message, but the intuition, that is coming from soul. That is coming from guides. That's coming from source. So it's coming through you in a very different manner. Um, yes. And I kind of paused because there was something I wanted to add in, and now I should have written it down and I lost it. Um,
I kept talking, sorry.
oh no, of course. Nope, it really is gone. Oh well, it'll come back. It'll come back. Yes.
Okay,
Um,
well.
yeah, so where were you going to be going with that? I'll let you start that call.
Well, okay. So what I wanted to say is sometimes anxiety can send messages, and not sometimes anxiety will send messages to the body, right? Your gut is going to turn into knots. You start to sweat. You're going to have some sensations, right? Your heart's racing. That is, that's going to be happening. And so to be able to distinguish the difference between, is this an anxiety thought? Is this a fear-based thought? Is this something that is, because it's not just a thought, it's happening somatically. Your whole body is responding to that thought. Or is this intuition, right? Is my body contracting? Does my body like say no? Getting to know yourself and know the difference between those two is going to be really important, because those anxiety thoughts can be very strong, very, very strong. There's a lot that can be happening in your body. So to be able to distinguish between the two, a little challenging, but it's absolutely pivotal to be able to notice, like, oh, and because that can also then help, your intuition can help you to almost, well, I don't want to say rewire because it's a whole nother thing, but to like send it in a different direction, put it that way.
Yeah, and I want to add to that. When we have, let's say that we don't listen to the intuition, but we knew immediately when we met that person, ooh, they're just not good for me. And it pans out that way. They're not good for you. And then, of course, a lot of us will kick ourselves. But I want to offer a reframe, because if we looked at that as, ooh, there's proof that my intuition is fantastic, and next time I'm going to listen to it more fully. And then every time we make that same mistake, oh, there's proof, right? There's proof that it was working. Hey, I didn't listen to it, but there is proof that I am receiving messages, whether it's here, whether it's coming in, however it's playing out in the body, there is proof that it's coming to me. And so the more that we focus on the fact that the messages are coming in, the more messages are going to come in. And that actually brings up another piece. I believe this strongly. I imagine you might feel the same, is that the more we talk about it with somebody else, and the more, especially if they're a strong believer in intuition and, being empathic and all of that, uh, the more messages we receive, because we are honoring ourselves. We are honoring that message and saying, not only do I feel you and I hear you, but I'm willing to be brave enough to talk to you about that, which
Mhm.
is incredible. And that opens up an entirely new level
Oh,
of
I totally agree. When we're open and we're sharing with trustful people, right? People we can trust with ourselves, emotionally safe people. It's really powerful to be able to share, like, hey, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm sensing. Not necessarily just for confirmation, but just in that sharing, because that's how we are, we're wired. We're wired to connect with others in that way. And they can say something then that kind of helps really bring clarity around what's happening. But we I know in the past when I was disempowered, I would take that stuff, I would take what I would be hearing, and I'd take it to somebody and I'd say, "What do you think?" And they would say, "Oh, I think that's terrible. You shouldn't do that." And I'd listen. And that was giving it away, right? So there's also a difference when you're connecting with somebody to be able to, like, someone who's trustworthy, it can just grow and flourish and it can just open so much up. Or are you giving it away to somebody and letting them lead once you give that intuition, that information, whatever, and then you say, no, you decide.
That is true. And, it is, I'm not going to lie, it's hard to find somebody that you can share so freely with that will support and say, well, what are you feeling about that? What does your heart say about that? Rather than even if I came to you and I said, Anita, what do you think of this? I know you well enough that you would respond back, well, how does that feel for you? And then that would be reflected back to me rather than somebody else who maybe doesn't have that ability to offer it back. They might just make a choice and then that you listen. I You are such a gift to me because I feel like I can reach out to you and I can tell you anything about what is going on, not just in my life, but also spiritually. Like, we talk about this all the time. Like, oh my God, this great meditation that I had last night, or the tree just spoke to me as I was walking down the street. And you don't think I'm crazy. And then you will share an experience. Oh, yeah, well, this bush talked to me the other day, like, and yes, I know other people might even be listening to this thinking, well, that's crazy. But literally, that happens to us all the time. We have been able to open up our intuition um, to a level that we do have these conversations. And I really can't share that with anybody else. And here we are publicly sharing it to the world. But
Now you all know.
now you all know. You can think we're crazy or not. Um, So I just, hopefully, I'm saying, please find somebody that you can share your deepest intuitions and knowings with, because it does change everything.
Yeah, we just had a conversation about something that I had channeled something and I shared it with you. And you sent me a message and you said, "Oh, you know what? That like reminds me of this and this and this." And it almost filled in the gaps and it helped bring it, like, make it more, I don't want to say practical, but make it more like coming out of the ethers and make it more tangible. And that conversation back and forth was just really, it was so rich because I shared that and whatever I shared resonated. And then because you've had a very different experience than me, you have a different life, you've walked a different path. And so you have taken in lots of different things that you shared with me. And then as I listen, it almost like it opens it up more. It's
Mm,
like you get this beautiful rose, right? And it's just gorgeous and you just love it. And then, someone contributes to it and it just like opens up a little bit further and opens up. And you can't even imagine this beautiful rose that you had could just blossom and like be this and just gorgeous, gorgeous flower. And at each stage, it's just as beautiful, but it's just like, whoa. And that's what connection can bring. But of course, that can get a little tricky, but emotionally safe connection can really bring that to kind of help you to see, wow, this is like there's something here. And look, she contributed this back. And like it just kind of it grows from there.
it grows the potential of the entire conversation to be something so much bigger. Oh, I truly wish for all of you watching this that you find a soul sister like Anita somewhere on the planet for yourself, soul sister, soul brother, that you can share that with, because it has been really life-changing for me anyway.
Well, and I have to say, I went. a lot of years very isolated and very lonely and thinking I'd never find that. For years, I just asked for um, anyone to come in who I could talk to about this, who I could, just share and be in this type of heart frequency with. And I have to say, being an empath for me, and I can only speak personally, was a very lonely journey. It was a for me. And so I don't know if that resonates with anyone out there. I just felt very isolated. I didn't feel very understood. I didn't feel like yeah, I always felt like the oddball in the room. And then I have all these like, oh yeah, no, I can't do this over there. Can you dim the lights? Like these kinds of things, which made me feel even more odd. And so I have to tell you, that didn't open up for me until I was able to connect to me. Because once I was able to bring healing to the shame, once I was able to process my emotions, once I was able to really get in touch with my soul and my true self, that is when I met Shannon. I was like, oh my gosh, we're soul sisters. Like, this is amazing. And that started to come in and it was able to do, I think, what it's intended to do, right? But I had to find that connection to myself first. So I just
Oh,
wanted to
I
share that.
I love that you shared that. Thank you. And I 100% agree. That was my exact journey. It felt so lonely all the time. And I had many friends. It's just different when it's a different vibration, a different frequency. And it's really authentic because I can say anything. And then I know you're going to say, well, yeah, that totally resonates. And I've experienced this along the same lines. And it feels so good to be acknowledged and not have someone think I'm crazy.
Yeah, it's really nice.
It's really nice.
It's really, really nice.
And, we live all the way across the US from each other. We are nowhere near one another. And we've just found ways to connect daily. And yeah, so you never know where you might find them.
Yes, we're on opposite coasts, and that's one of the ways, I don't want to get too much into the tech, but yeah, we send videos to each other. It's one of the ways that the tech can be used in a positive way, right? Um, but how important for empaths to be connected, which is one of the reasons why we're on here at all. Because so often any of my clients who are empaths have shared the same story. It's like, but I feel so alone, but I don't know anybody like me, but I don't know how do like who's an empath? So it's one of the reasons why we're here is to actually provide that space to let's just talk about, yeah, sometimes it can be really lonely, but it's also really important to create that connection because it really does, it just enhances and enriches an empath's life to not have to live it alone. And um, I think connected empaths also are really, and again, we know we said this last time, really needed on the planet. Empowered empaths are really needed on the planet. What we have to offer is really important. And I can't wait to get into all of that. But
You know
we're
what just
talking
came
about
through?
intuition, so I want to stay kind
I
of
know what came through was empowered or connected empaths are inspired empaths.
Ooh, I love
We
that.
we inspire one another as we are in this co-creation of discussion and sharing. And so hopefully, even if you don't have a soul sister or soul brother currently that you can share your empathic journey with, you're finding it here. So we hope that we can be that for you and that you feel seen and heard while you listen. And you
Yeah.
can always comment to us as well if you're like, hey, what about this? Let us know. Let us know. Hmm.
Yeah, it's really what we're hoping to create. And I wanted to, but there was one thing in that I wanted to. kind of like there was something back, a couple of things I wanted. I know I should have written it down too. Because in order to connect with someone who is emotionally safe, aligned with your values, those are the things, you need to be in touch with yourself. And if you're operating out of anxiety and fear, that's going to be difficult. Oh, I know. So it is the difference between, because I think we were kind of hinting at that a little bit, the difference between an anxiety thought, and how your body is getting activated as part of that, and then intuition. What's the difference? So I'm anxious to hear, like, because I think at this point I just want to, share our personal stories because I don't want to tell anybody what their intuition is. But what's the difference for you? So how do you know the difference?
So I will say that long ago, years ago, that was really hard to figure it out. What was the difference? And what it took for me was a lot of release of trauma and stress in order to be able to discern between the two. And now it really is a sense of ease, a sense of knowing. And even when I look back on some of the bigger events that I've experienced where I had either an empathic feeling or a knowing, an intuitive hit that would come through, even if it wasn't a good thing, there was this sense that I was calm about it. I wasn't upset about it. There was long ago, I was in my early mid 20s, and I was working at this shop. Just to share a story, why not?
Yes,
I
of
was
course.
working in a shop, and there happened to be there was an upstairs a deck, like an outside deck on the roof where you could go and have your lunch. And I just gotten my paycheck, and I was going next door to the bank. The bank was literally right next door, and then I was going to go take my lunch up and sit on the deck. As I reached for my purse I was literally reaching down for my purse, and I got this intuitive hit where I saw that there was a bank robbery, and um, they there were guns involved. No one was getting injured, but on the way out, they grabbed my backpack or my purse and backpack, and they took it. And it was very quick. And in that moment, there was just this like ease. There was like, oh, it's okay. You don't need to go deposit your check right now. There was no fear. There was no nothing. It was just this, you don't need to go right now. And I was like, oh, I really don't need to go right now. And it could have really been anxiety ridden. I could have worried over it. I could have, whatever. Uh, but I didn't. And I feel like that's that kind of spaciousness. There was no fear. It literally just came in so easy. My body felt good. My body felt safe, even though I knew the bank was right next door. Anyway, to finish the story, I did just grab my lunch and I went upstairs. And as I sat down to open up my sandwich to eat it, there goes the bank alarms. And, the bank had been robbed. And I was like, just sitting there. And I was so calm and peaceful. And I was like, thank you. Thanks, everyone. I still have my purse, my backpack, and my check so that I hadn't deposited. So yeah. So I think it's times like that where when something comes through, even if it's negative, but it feels calm and it's basically just telling you, hey, if you go that way, it might not be the best for you.
That is an incredible story. And I think it's absolutely a perfect example of what that looks like because I absolutely agree. One, I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad that you listened. That's an incredible story. But and I love that word. I love the use of that word. There's ease around it. There's just this sense of ease, even if it's something that could potentially be really scary, oh my gosh, and that's what fear will do, right? It's going to tell the story and it's going to add to the story. And then all of a sudden this, and then you're just going to worry and like That's the train that goes that direction. So I love that word. I think that's exactly it. Whether you're getting an intuition about something that's really fun or something that is like, no, maybe this is not right for you to go here. Something this is not going to be good. Um, there's not going to be that fear attached to it.
And for anyone, this is a little side note, but it suddenly occurred to me that some empath might be sitting there thinking, that's great, but was that an empathic feeling or was that an intuitive hit? And I don't have that same intuition. And I'm going to tell you this, you do. I lovingly say you do. And that one of the ways to open that up is what we already talked about before, which is acknowledging it within yourself, acknowledging it aloud to other people, and clearing your trauma, getting it out of your body. That is one of the best ways to open up your intuition. You are so loaded with all of the gunk that you cannot see, feel, know clearly.
Yes, 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 and yes again. Yes. 100%, 1000% agree. That was the turning point for me. Although, of course, I can look back and know that it was always there, as we said, like it's always there, but we do override it because the fear takes over. So it wasn't until I was able to heal the wounds, release a lot, and I use the word release, but really like clear a lot of that trauma and process the emotions of that trauma that were just stuck inside of me, right? That processing has to occur. And it doesn't mean that I had to go through every single thing that ever happened to me because there was a lot. But it was keeping me captive. It was holding me in and it was disconnecting me from my intuition, from my inner knowing. It was absolutely in the way. And that was when I started to heal. I started to um, get back in touch with my body because my body was not a safe place to be. It wasn't a safe place to feel. Nothing felt safe. I was at the point where if I just stood still, I felt afraid. That's how dysregulated my nervous system was. I was in a constant state of functional freeze. I was absolutely, my nervous system was shredded. And so saying to me, go into your body was no. No, I'm not doing it. Didn't feel safe. So I had to create that safety within my body. And then all of a sudden, I started to notice things. And so a quick story I wanted to share was one of the things I noticed, I started playing with very small little things like, do I want salad for lunch or do I want a smoothie for lunch? Do I want to wear this or do I want to wear this? And start paying attention to what my body was saying and what I noticed for me personally, and everybody is different, is when it's something that I know my soul, my heart really wants, I smile. I actively smile. And if it doesn't, it's something I don't want, I frown. So now, like when I go shopping, I used to think, what's the best thing to buy? What should I do? What's in trend? All those things. Now I'm like, do I smile or do I not? And that is literally how I pick things now because it's like I've gotten so in touch with what my heart, what my soul, what my body, like this whole, you know, these three like amazing aspects of myself are actually really saying, as opposed to the brain that's saying, oh, yeah, that's not on trend this season. Like you shouldn't buy that. That's not, that's what's going on in the head. But what my body's saying is, we would love this, like, yes, let's have a salad today. It feels so good. That is how then that's what started to happen because I was safe enough to tune in.
I just have to say this because Anita and I were always saying, "Oh my gosh, we're so parallel in the things that we do." And I literally played those games the same. I there was a moment in time where I decided I really wanted to work on muscle testing for myself. And so I played the game of which this or that every day for a year. And it was like, what color shirt am I going to wear? I would go to the restaurant. Does my body want this? Does my body want that? And so I want to encourage you out there listening to be playful. We both came to this in the same way. We played games with our self, with our nervous system, with, with our body, with our feelings. And when it comes to like you have a smile, and I would say for me, when I'm feeling something, my heart smiles. It
Mhm.
literally feels like my heart opens up into this big smile when I know something is for me. I love that feeling.
Yeah. And I love that you said that because I think just that phrase right there, that I know that it's good, that something for me is something that's so out of reach for so many empaths, so much, because any empath that I've ever worked with has said, but if I think about me, I'm selfish. If
Oh,
I've heard that once, I've
every
heard that
time.
a million times. But I can think about me because that's me being selfish. And so I love that you said that because I just want to share that that is actually that is the switch that helped me to be able to give from my heart instead of out of obligation, instead of abandoning myself in order to please another. It cut the codependency. It stopped all of those habits that I had of just actually sacrificing myself. I was taking care of others, but I wasn't there too, right? I was giving and giving, but I wasn't giving to myself. And so being able to actually make that shift within me and say, actually, I'm worthy to get the care as well. I'm worthy to be here as well. It matters, to me, and it matters to my body, whether or not this is good for me. And I can give myself that permission.
100%. I know that for myself, I absolutely gave myself away. I gave myself away completely to my family, and I couldn't find myself anymore. There came a point where it was a breaking point where I was like, I don't know who I am anymore. I have given everything to everybody else. And what's left? And that was necessary for me in my journey to hit that point so that then I could flip the switch and become what I like to say self-full. Not selfish, but self-full. And I was able to grow that fullness within me. And as I grew in my own self fullness, I realized I was able to give more love and more care because I was so full of everything, so full of that love for myself. And that changed my entire life.
I love that. That's exactly it. And I love that phrase. Um, that's exactly that has been my personal experience. It's been the experiences I've seen through my clients because you are giving from a fullness. And instead of that depleted state where you're like, okay, I'll show up again. And then you end up feeling icky and you don't even feel good. You didn't even give of what you wanted to give. It was just like, yes, I love that so much because that fullness really is allowing then your heart it feels safe enough to expand and kind of like that rose open up and you can't even imagine what could be there for you. What level of connection, what level of that ease, where you're like, oh, there's more ease here. There's more like I can tap into actual joy, right? When we're so depleted, we often talk about the anxiety, but joy's out of reach too, So like that starts to come online and then you're full of that, right? You're full of all these things. And oh my gosh, can you give from that place? And when then people can really receive it and that's how light just like kind of spreads through
Yes, I
through the
think that's one of the
world.
biggest things that I hear from my clients as well as when they come in and they're starting to they just think they're working on a few things inside of them. And then we start to really dig and then they're like, "Oh, I don't know, I don't think I could stop giving like that." And then there's like this switch. And once I get them to that point where they can switch to being that self-full, then they come back and they're like, my relationships are so much better with my kids, my partner, my friends. Like, what in the world is this magic? And it's like, yeah, that's self-fullness, that's self-love, self-compassion. Like, it is magical. It is a life changer. We just
Oh,
got to get them there.
absolutely. No, it absolutely is, and it's one of the hardest things, especially for an empath, to reach, because there's this block. There's this Many empaths have been told they're too sensitive, they're too needy, they're asking for too much, and there are these narratives that we play inside of our head, and then we're our own worst critic. And it really is just a way to keep us completely disconnected from all of this. And empaths are just naturally wired for this level of love, this frequency of love. And it flows like a faucet's been turned on, right? And it changes relation, it opens up capacity for another relationship. You're operating a different frequency, and more of the people who are more along the soul level that you are, like that frequency that you're operating on, they're hearing you now. And they're like, there they are. And all of a sudden, your life is just shifting and changing. Mhm.
Mhm. So, if you were to give one or two pieces of advice when it comes back to discernment and listening to your intuition, what
Hmm.
would it be?
But the word that keeps coming up is permission. That's the word that just keeps coming up to me.
100% permission. Yes, permission.
Give yourself permission to play with it. Give yourself permission to do what you need to do for you. Give yourself permission. Like that's one of the things that we don't do for ourselves. Yeah, that would be the word that just keeps coming up.
And I'm going to add to that, and I'm going to say, if you're a practitioner out there, and I don't care what kind of practitioner you are, whether you're in somatics, whether you're in fitness, whatever it is, I want to invite that you actually offer permission to the people that you work with, because that is something that I consistently do. And I feel like my clients, especially when it comes to group work, they will take care of themselves because I am constantly offering permission. I'm constantly saying, if this does not resonate in your body, if this feels uncomfortable, then this practice or this movement, this is not for you. And I want you to modify it. I want you to change it. If you have trouble with that, ask me. I'll help you modify. I'll help you change this. But the more that we come across as practitioners that we are not gods. We are not gurus. We do not know you better than you know yourself. The more that our clients and the people in our classes, whatever it is, that they will start to believe that they have the power to make choices. Right? So start giving them that permission to make choices for themselves. And you're planting a seed that they're going to go someplace else and also utilize that for themselves because we're rare. So, you know, give them that empowerment to go out into the world and make a choice wherever they're at in the world.
Yeah. I love that word too, choice. That is something that felt so out of reach um, years ago as a disempowered empath. I didn't really feel like I had choice. I always felt like a victim of everything that was going on. Oh no, this energy's too much. Everything. I was always a victim. And oh my gosh, choice. You do have choice. You have choice in these moments to just listen, to shift something, to um, allow yourself that space to say, what about me? How does this feel for me? And that's initially how this started, because for the first time, it's been quite the while that I've been able to do this, but for the first time in real life, I was able to actively say, you know what? even though this particular class is, I'm sure it's wonderful for a lot of people, this particular element of this class, I'm not going to watch it. And that's okay. And before I used to feel like, oh, I'm going to miss out or I'm doing it wrong. And I'm like, nope, this is just not feeling for me. And that's okay. It's great for them. And that's okay. And that's where that permission to let them be doing what they're doing over here. Because for me, it's not a good fit. And that's the place to start.
Yes.
Mhm.
Mm. Wow. Well, we went on this playful journey, and that journey is coming to an end today. But I would just, from my personal self, my personal soul, I would love to say thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing your energy, your love, your care. We feel it. And I look forward to just being back here again with you all, being back here again with Anita, that I love and adore so much, having this playful back and forth banter and sharing our stories.
No, thank you so much, Shannon. I love you. I love this space. I just love the idea that we are, we're really just sharing out of the love of our hearts. And I just love that more love is the idea that more love is going to blossom and really bloom inside of every person as they connect to themselves, as they touch, into their own intuition and they become this fabulous, authentic expression of who they truly are. For all of you who are listening, you each have one, and that expression is needed. And can't wait to hear and get to know a little bit about all of your original and authentic expressions of who you are as an empath.
Ah, yes. And I just, as you were saying that, I just have to end this with, I was imagining what it would be like if all of the empaths literally were walking through the world with their brightest light, most authentic expression of self. I mean, that just gives me chills just thinking about it. So, step by step, my loves, just step by step, finding that little bit of you and letting it grow, letting it sparkle, letting it shine. You are going to get to exactly where you need to be. You came here for this moment and this time. You did. And we're here with you
Absolutely.
too. Love you all. Love you, Anita.
Love you too. We can change the world for
Yes.
love. Love you too. Thank you.